Everyone, welcome to Social Club. Thought we'd do a different type of special. We've got the Toffee TV lads here because, of course, Wayne Rooney, the prodigal son, has returned to Goodison. And I think it's fair to say you boys are absolutely over the moon.
Yeah, loads of people are watching our videos.
Helps.
We're actually going to change our channel's name from Toffee TV to Wayne Rooney TV.
WRTV.
It really, really does help the algorithm.
Yeah, big
Really
on
does.
big on the algorithm.
Yeah.
It's mad because I get it, and I was talking a little bit about it on Twitter over the weekend, and I spend a lot of time with you guys, so I get it. I get your excitement about it, and we've been talking about this in potential for a couple of years now, really. I guess the depth of feeling towards him outside of the blue half of Merseyside isn't quite as good, and I think there's a lot of people wondering about the man himself and the ability that he still has, and obviously a little bit of the history. And I guess it's is it 13 years now?
13 years.
Since he left Everton. So I figured what we do is we kind of go back to the start, talk a little bit about Wayne Rooney, his career as an Evertonian, moving through to United and then through to the move back, just to give a bit of context and have a bit of a chat about the player himself. So, I mean, even from the outside, obviously I have no great love for Wayne Rooney, no great love for an Evertonian who turns into a man.
I'm gonna say, yeah, probably your worst combination.
Well, this is the thing. When he first burst onto the scene, he was like 16, wasn't he, when he made his debut, and that was the thing for us, watching him come through and thinking, you've got to, Liverpool had a decent record of bringing young players through at that point. You guys had Franny Jeffers, who never quite scaled the heights, moved to Arsenal and fell off a cliff, essentially. I remember Gary Lineker saying at the time, he said, he watched him and said, we found one. Because the second you saw Rooney play, you could see what an amazing player he was.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. I remember, obviously, I was working at Everton at the time, so there was a lot of buzz about this kid coming through, and I remember a tremendous game. We got beat 1-0 at home by Ipswich under Walter Smith, head of times. Matt Holland scored the winner, it was a cracker. But Wayne Rooney was, Everton had asked could he be excused from school the day before, but he was it came back, he was too young, essentially, to be involved in the squad for whatever reason. I can't, it was years ago now, but for whatever reason, but it was that early. People were looking at him, this kid, this schoolboy.
That's what it was.
That's all it was, yeah. It was just a glint in his dad's eye. And then obviously later on, as it went through, and David Moyes come in, we seen he scored a goal against Tottenham in the FA Youth Cup semi-final.
You know what, right?
Which was unbelievable.
No one's ever seen this goal. It's still probably the greatest goal he's ever scored.
Yeah, it is.
It's unbelievable, this goal that he scored in the Youth Cup semi-final.
He takes
a free kick from about 40 yards, I'm not lying, but he hits it straight at the wall, and it just bounces back to him, so he just hits it first time.
With his other foot.
And you've never seen a ball move so fast in your life, and everyone just sort of just went, oh my God.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, it was just pure anger, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just hit through the ball.
He scored one a couple of years ago, Newcastle's quite similar, it's just pure anger, and we just went, oh my God.
There was something very much in the anger thing's a big thing because it's kind of been with him throughout. But I always used to say about Wayne Rooney, young Wayne Rooney in particular, was like he's never been like lightning, has he? He was never slow, but I always felt like he was as fast or as strong as he needed to be in any situation. Yeah. You would never have said he was like, particularly look at that Man United side later on, which we'll come to in a little bit, but Ronaldo's got incredible pace, but when Rooney was in a foot race with someone, whether he was just anger powered or whatever, and that was just, but it was just something that he had. And you look at, I think it typified a lot of like Scouse lads coming through as well. Like Robbie Fowler had a bit of that to him as well. There's that little bit of gnarl that comes with growing up in. It was Crocs that he grew up in as well, wasn't it? And he had that from a kid. He was built like a bull.
Yeah,
and he had that edge to his.
I think that's why no one had any issues about bringing him into the team so early, because of how he was built like a boxer, and you look at his first Premier League goal against Arsenal. That's all about class, the first touch, the way he bends it, and the week after he does, a couple of weeks later, whatever it was, he went to Leeds and he does it again. But there's a goal like what you're talking about there. He's a goal at Highbury against Arsenal. I think we drew 1-1 with them, and it's like that.
Got beat 3-1.
Oh, no one can touch him. No one like he's it's not that anyone can keep up with him. It's just no one can physically touch him. They bounce off him. So that's where you're talking about with that kind of pace. He can go as fast as he needs to, and if anyone comes over to him and tries to, they just bounce off him. He doesn't knock them; they just bounce off him. Yeah. And that's what his early part, his career was like. And there was a game against West Brom, wasn't it? Was it Darren Moore? Big centre back, old school centre back, big lad, and he just took him to the clean. And I've never seen a display like it. I think Rooney just destroyed him. And afterwards, Darren Moore came out in the press, went, "Oh, if he keeps behaving like that, he'll get nowhere." But it wasn't cockiness. It was just that.
No, he stopped the ball, didn't he? He put his foot on the ball and just went like that. Yeah. He abused Darren Moore. But he was 16. But the thing about that game, he did have him. He had him on toast that day. But the biggest thing for me about that game was this was a kid who'd come into our team, 16. He might have just been 17 then, telling 35-year-old Kevin Campbell to run to the corner flag because we were winning 1-0 and we were on that run, maybe we won 6 on the run and all that. And telling him to run to the corner flag in the 93rd minute and keep the ball. You know, when it should have been flipped on its head, it should have been a 35-year-old saying to the 16-year-old, run to the corner. And that was the thing that caught my eye. He just knew how to win games at that age.
Was it an inevitability in moving to a United at the time? I mean, Everton weren't exactly what you'd call cash rich, not like they are these days.
See, if I was to say now, and he'll give you a different opinion, but if I was to say now as a 38-year-old, I'll look back and go, yes, it was of course it was inevitable. But me then, being a bit greener and a bit wet around the and believing every word that came out of certain people's mouths at the club, and also having the fact that he was, after everyone remembers Euro 2004 and how amazing he was in that, and how he just burst out, and he was like the best player in the world or whatever. You know what I mean? He just, and he emphasised everything that was good, and for us to have that, you can't believe that. I wasn't quite as cynical as I am now then, so I wouldn't have believed it. But looking back, you go, of course it was inevitable, and especially what you've learned, and that's where the softening of the whole thing, which we'll probably talk about, has come from. But
let's get into it, because obviously
Baz has got a better take because he worked there. So
the depth of feeling, I think, for the general families, I know Evertonians who were like, again, the softening, which as you say, we'll discuss. But at the time, a lot of people they weren't best pleased with young Wayne. And I think he bore a lot of the brunt of that transfer. And I don't think, I think we're as you say, I think what Ped's alluding to is, as I say, maybe Everton's financial situation. It was money they were not capable of turning down effectively.
Yeah, we were in dire straits that summer. Obviously, I don't think he didn't start the summer wanting to leave Everton. I remember him doing an interview towards the end of the season. He was like, "I want to be captain next season. My club and blah blah." He went away to the Euros, and Everton brought in Trevor Birch at the time, who'd been at Chelsea. Came in and presented 3 solutions to our finances. One of them was sell Wayne Rooney, because he was the biggest asset we had. And people at the time didn't like it. And Trevor Birch came and went in 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. He was out the door because he said, you need a new stadium, you need to sell Wayne Rooney, and other stuff as well. And they didn't like it. But before he went, he'd gone over to Portugal and spoke to... This was in the press as well. Spoke to Roman Abramovich. He's yours for 50 million. And Chelsea wanted him. Chelsea were all over it at that time, because this kid was on fire. If he wouldn't have broke his foot against Portugal, I still believe England would have won that 2004. We were brilliant in it. And he was brilliant as the front runner for it. Anyway, that happened, and it come back, and obviously Trevor Birch went, and our finances were getting tighter and tighter, and people at the football club, were told that wages, things were getting very tight. So it was inevitable, but it was also inevitable because we weren't able to grow with him at that time, purely the way we were. And so we went out the door, and I think the biggest thing for us was that it hurt so much because, we just sold a centre-forward for 75 million, which arrived to 90. I don't give a toss. He's not in my top 5 Everton strikers. He'd done a very good job for Everton, scored a lot of goals. I'm really interested in him, to be honest with you. When this kid left, it hurt. It was one of your own walking out the door. I suppose
And
it would have been a
the
kid
one
to
sibling
Gerrard.
always a blue stuff.
Well, it
around
would have
that
been
time
like
as well.
Steven Gerrard, you
Yeah.
know. We just didn't have people to go around and threaten Wayne to stay, unfortunately, allegedly. But no, it went out the door, and obviously we'd seen this, and being a centre forward as well, and being as good as he was, coming through, and he'd left, and it was because we'd had the whole story. Don't forget, he's a die-hard blue, and we had the pictures of him with Duncan as a mascot at Anfield. So we had the whole thing of he really is one of our own. And the next minute he was gone, and I think everyone was just like, well, if he can do it, then what's the point? 'Cause I think, to be honest, I've got to be honest, probably at that time, I then started to go, we'd had Duncan Ferguson, which was heartbreaking for us. Jeffers was upsetting because he was an Evertonian and all that. But this one probably was the day I just went, yeah, I'm done with emotional connections with footballers anymore. And that's how it felt to me. I don't know about you.
But then it was spun. And I think Wayne Rooney was in the centre of it. It was spun by his agent.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a big thing about his agent, about him having like a local agent, and that was wrestled off the agent by Paul Stretford. And there was a big court case about that at the time.
And we had the Newcastle stuff.
Then
the phantom bid and
there
all
was Newcastle, and then the club reporting out, he wanted to leave, and there was a little bit of some fans like he never wanted to leave. And then I remember as well, about a week before, or there was a story put in a newspaper that we don't like.
Sure.
And it felt like the story had been put in there to make people dislike him, because we see that all the time.
Yeah.
You've had it with Sturridge. We've had a bit with Sterling. Sorry, you'll have it with Sturridge.
Yeah. They'll plant it.
We've had a bit with Lukaku recently, with just the way they almost manipulate the situation so that fans fall out of love with them. And there was almost a little bit of that with Wayne, and you almost felt like Wayne was in the middle, because I'm lucky. I've met Wayne's mum and dad. I was friends with the man who discovered them. I used to work with his daughter. Yeah. So when Wayne was almost at his height, I was in a pub with his mum and dad the day he signed his deal with Nike. Yeah. And he walked in like head to toe in Nike gear. It was like unbelievable. And funny enough, my missus was sitting wearing that shirt in the pub, and I was just like, oh, this is just a little. It was just, it was just like, okay. So I've sat there, and they're just dead normal, honest, down to earth people. And that's what Wayne Rooney is. And you just feel like it was all manipulated, though.
Let me just say that this is what he was like the day I was working there at the time. And used to do the players' tickets and that. But the day he made his debut, Spurs, I was working in the ticket office, he'd come to the ticket office window with his mate to buy a ticket his mate was buying a ticket for the game the next day. He come to the box office, pair of shorts on, no shirt tucked into his stuff, juggling a ball. And I'm going, our squad tomorrow. I stood there and I was like, oh yeah. And then after he'd scored his goals, I was down at Belfield there, and he'd just come and just sit in the room. And so he was just a normal lad. And I don't think without being disrespectful to him, he wasn't capable of the way they portrayed him after he'd left. It was very obvious. And a lot of Evertonians hated it, and quite, like you said before, didn't have the full picture. So it was spun a certain way, and your love for him boiled over, but it really was fabricated. Everything he'd done after he'd done himself, but around that time, it was very much a fabricated story.
I guess, because I remember speaking to Evertonians at the time, and I remember some guys saying, I'd never have him back. Could you imagine at that time, I mean, you might have known it, you might not have felt exactly that, knowing a little bit more around it, but, I mean, Ped, could you have even fathomed the time then, that he moved where he'd not just come back, but be welcomed back? No,
the hatred was just unbelievable, like unbelievable. And it did spin on. It wasn't just from that. The game where he scored and he kissed the shirt and kissed the Man United badge and things like that. And I've been at Old Trafford when he's played, and he's give loads to our fans and stuff. But when you look back, you just think, and as you grow as well, and you've seen him grow, you think to yourself, there must have been, the word anger's come up a few times, there must have been so much anger with him, almost as he's grown up, going, well, these don't know the story. Yeah. These don't know the full story. When obviously none of us know the full story. But as I just said there, you just don't think. You think, look at Wayne Rooney, and you just don't. When he was 18, that was not a lad. That was not a lad who was in full control of his career. Yeah. Someone's come over. I don't know if this is how it's happened, but if someone had come over to you and gone, your boyhood club doesn't want you anymore. Yeah. They want you out the door, and then
manager doesn't like you.
Yeah, the manager didn't. Moyes didn't like him. We all know Moyes didn't like him. Moyes put it in his book. It was in books and stuff that didn't. There was film of them at training with not getting on. Wayne wanted to do shooting practice all the time and stuff like that, and Moyes would be like, "No, we're doing this," and they were falling out over stuff. We knew that, so it was almost like Wayne was being told, pushed out the door. And then you've got someone like Sir Alex Ferguson promising him the world, but who could deliver you the world as well, which is another big thing when you're 18. And I always feel like a lot of that stuff, like kissing the badge and giving shit to Everton fans, come from the pure anger of you don't know the full story of this.
The other thing is, if any of us, if you were a footballer, you're a Liverpool fan, you left and you went to Anfield and you were giving the fans are destroying you all game. And like you just said, you don't know you score at the Cop. What are you going to do? Mate, if I scored against Everton, the fans had abused me the way they did and I'd scored, I'd have done more than kiss the badge.
Exactly. I think it feeds a lot into what you're saying as well about the mentality. He's not, I don't think he's, with the greatest respect to him, I don't think he's intelligent enough to be that calculating in certain instances. He's very much...
Everything's off the cuff with him.
Exactly.
And that's why
and so, when you see all these players in it's like, oh no, I won't celebrate against... I've played for 15. Robbie Keane won't celebrate against the clubs he's playing against. Jesus Christ, mate, you're never going to get to celebrate.
Never. Well, you reckon he's going back to Ireland, so he's all right.
Well,
he doesn't play for
but you get the impression with Wayne Rooney is that I think it's respectful in some instances, maybe because of the connection to Everton it is. I can see why you'd be foaming at the mouth to see him if he's like celebrating at Goodison or whatever, like you would as a fan, you'd hate that. Yeah. But I think it's a testament to the character of the guy. That's how he is.
And it was. Don't forget, this was all it wasn't pre-internet, but it was pre-social media. So you don't have those connections. Okay, you've got forums and stuff. He said, she said. But the way now, like, football is so, everything's an open secret now. Everything. I mean, you've even got, again, we go back to Lukaku. The deal isn't technically done. And he's putting stuff on about, and you've even got Man United now having a go at Lukaku saying, stop doing interviews. You haven't even signed for us. Yeah. We don't do things like this. But, there's a social,
Rot deal then.
Before social media, things could go, half-truths become truths or the other way around. Now, the story would have been spread a lot quicker. I remember people outside Goodison giving flyers out to fans going, Wayne Rooney, the truth. Passing people. Now, if you didn't like want one of those flyers, or you didn't get one of those flyers, or if you didn't, you read it, you go, if you already had your mind made up, you got load of nonsense. But now, if it happened, it would be all over the internet, and you could have maybe it would soak in a little bit more. But that's what it was like. There were people handing out leaflets saying, this is the truth. Yeah. Don't be taken in by it.
Don't forget, at that time, there was also a power struggle at Everton. There was the King's Dock thing had collapsed, and there was Paul Gregg, who was a director there. He wanted to get control, and Bill Kenwright didn't want to the finances were bad. It spun like that, and it had to be fabricated. Bill Kenwright didn't want to sell Wayne Rooney. It's in Alex Ferguson's book. He was crying and all of that. So obviously there was a bigger picture around it.
He got on the phone to his mum.
He got on the phone to his mum, yeah. And it got worse. But then I felt a softening around he missed a couple of Goodison games, and then I remember...
But he missed a couple of Goodison games because he was getting so... It was getting so bad that he was getting so bad that Ferguson was starting to leave him out of games because it was affecting the way he was playing. Yeah. So in the end, it actually did come back to actually be good for us. That the anger, maybe that.
But do you remember the Rodwell game when Rodwell scored? The Rodwell game, the only good game he had for us. We christened it the Rodwell game.
Just a game he won.
Just a game he won. No, he went forward and scored. Yeah. He scored in it. But we beat United 3-1, and Rooney played that day, and I remember he missed a sitter, and the Gladys Street kind of gave him a little, and he didn't react. The United scored, and Berbatov scored, and he just patted him on the head and walked away. And he started to look a little bit less like, I want to do something here. And his effect on the games against us got less and less, because he'd started then to come back to Goodison with the cap on, watch a couple of games. So it took a little bit of...
That is lad as well. His lad was starting to get into footy, and you were starting to think, which way will his lad go? Because you remember that at the time, and then there's pictures of us. I think that's what it might have been. His kid wearing the Everton kits. That might have been the first sign.
People started
his kid wearing, rather than him sort of softening people going, he's putting his kid.
All he had to do was put the picture in his pyjamas.
Yeah,
and
he should
this
have,
have been
And then there was also...
the fact that he's been sleeping in Everton pyjamas for 13 years.
And then there was...
genuinely don't...
There was also as well...
I think he has.
There was also as well...
Everton
My missus still got this. He did the Hello magazine when he got married. He got married in the Mediterranean. There was pictures of a boat and Duncan Ferguson went. And I think there was like...
Stubbs was there.
And there was, again... There was this little sort of and there was people going, he's been senior at the match as well. And then I think the big one was 2009. We got to the cup final against Chelsea, obviously, and he was there. Yeah. And he was like, "I've come to watch my team." And then the fans who were dead angry with him were starting to grow up and starting to understand. And then the truer light, the true picture of everything that had happened was starting to come out. People started to. We'd gone through the Kirby Stadium thing as well, so there was a lot of split between the fans. People were starting to see a truer picture of maybe how the club had been run for the last 10 years, and a bigger picture was starting to come out of the whole thing. And since then it's really it has really softened.
If you look at it on the whole from that, he had to achieve what he's achieved. And it's hard to say.
You could argue that Everton might have achieved more if he was there, but
he might have won a trophy. Yeah,
what he achieved at Man
United.
Well,
that's what I was just going to say. He could sit here with us now and go, well, I've just won 5 Premier. He's won every major honour in the game. Yeah. Every major, including the Europa League.
I always think the player I compare him to, in a way, is Totti. I think Totti stayed at Roma, his boyhood club, was captain, won the league. I think that's the only thing he's ever won there. I mean, what a thing to win though. But he said himself, win that one Scudetto was worth more than anything else. Okay, so I think he's won the World Cup as well. But for that, that's what he's won now. Yeah. Now, whether Wayne Rooney stayed at Everton and won, maybe I'm not saying we would have won the league, but if we'd won a trophy, would he have turned around and said the same thing? Yeah. But Wayne Rooney's gone away, won everything.
Well, look at Alan Shearer. Yeah. There's a guy who he obviously had a Premier League title under his belt from Blackburn, but he could have gone to Man United and he could have won those trophies that Wayne was winning. But he wanted to go back to his boyhood club there and then, and he claims to have no regrets. And I'm sure maybe he doesn't.
He does. The
only difference with that is, don't forget though, that Newcastle were in a much better position than. I think if Everton, say this money would have come 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Rooney would have been back at Goodison 5 years ago. Then that's factual. It almost happened
2 years ago.
2 years ago, before United gave him the stupid contract he got. He met Everton in London and had agreed to come back. He wanted to come back. And then obviously they gave him 300 grand a week. And at the time, Moyes didn't... It was almost seen as though it was when Moyes was there. That was that summer.
But so him and Moyes had kissed and made up as well, hadn't he?
But it was almost seen that Moyes couldn't lose because people were kind of questioning how he got the job.
Was this before or after he went? Was it Ferguson's testimonial?
No, it's before Ferguson's testimonial.
But if I remember the talk at that time as if he goes out the door, Wayne Rooney, Moyes is coming and already he's lost like it's a fella that scored 190 goals or whatever he'd done for them. They just couldn't afford to lose him, which is why they give him that, and that's why it's kicked on the way.
So obviously we've seen as we described the softening. I mean, just to touch on his United time. I mean, I think often you can spot a player who lives up to the billing. I mean, he comes in. I think he made his debut in the Champions League, and he'd been injured. He'd not played, and he come in and he was just first class. And he said you can't deny what he's achieved. I guess the chief criticisms that I've seen from social media around this, I've seen Man United fans weighing in on this, that in their opinion, I see it finished. People like hyperbole, don't they, on Twitter? People saying he's done and dusted. I don't agree with that. The question, I guess, is that what Wayne Rooney are you guys getting? Are you getting the Wayne Rooney who is ready to enter the heyday of his career and play a more senior? I say senior role, but or is it going to be the guy who comes in and wants to play 50 games a season? And does that represent an issue for Everton moving forward? Because how do you tell Wayne Rooney that he's not playing week in, week out?
I mean, we've just watched this press conference with Ronald Koeman. They've done, and he said he's spoke at length to Koeman and they've had a chat about what his role will be. I think he was absolutely unreal for Manchester United. He's finished as their top scorer ever and he's won every trophy. You can't argue with that. He's done a lot there. Fantastic. We're getting him back at a time when, okay, ideally he'd be 26 and me and Ped would be sat here in Rooney pyjamas. But we're getting a player back who I think can still affect the game in the final third. I don't think he's a midfield player, and I think that's kind of wrecked him, I think, a little bit at United of late, that he's being used deeper where he's got to run around. Ronald Koeman has got a midfield now that is capable of getting about the pitch, and it's quick and it's competitive. So I think Rooney will be used in the final third, but I think he also accepts that there'll be a lot of games this season. So I think he will be one of the first choices. I think that's how it's coming across. But if Ronald Koeman doesn't like anyone. I'm not even sure he likes his wife. So therefore, he won't have any issue going, you're on the bench, kid, for 2 weeks. Yeah. But I also think, and I don't know whether you disagree or agree, but I also think Wayne Rooney, the way he is, he's at his best when he's playing regularly.
Yeah, he's got to play. He's got to play, like, because you get the feeling that he's always had, like, not fitness issues, but you just feel like he has to play to be fit. You know what I mean?
Timing and everything.
Yeah, everything. And as you get older, I remember we played a couple of years ago when we played in the FA Cup semi-final, and he did play midfield, and he ran the show. He's got that nous, and I think there's players in our team that don't have that. Yeah. And what we have seen over the last few years is, you know, we've had Gareth Barry, and we all moaned when he came in, and he did a great job, and obviously he's gone. His legs have probably gone now, but there is always room, I think. You know, use like Gary McAllister and use won the treble. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I think there's always room. You know, Frank Lampard left Chelsea and went to Man City and had a decent season. Yeah. You know, it does happen. There is a place for these players, that little bit of experience, someone who's been there, seen it and done it, to drag everyone else.
But I think there's something to point out. We've discussed this for the last year, talking about how Everton would spend money and what it mean, and the importance of. I think the importance of marquee to some extent, and I think for where Everton are in the developments, for whatever people might feel about Rooney as the player or the man or whatever, that name still means something, and what that says to world football about having that there, because people in this country watching week in, week out might go, well, I'm not sure he's quite the player, but on a global sense, Wayne Rooney, the brand, still carries a lot of weight.
Massive. We've just been up to Goodison, and there's TV trucks everywhere, there's people everywhere, the shops got... You know, it annoyed me slightly when they announced it, because they didn't announce his name and number. I was like, get his name and number out, get it in the shops now. It took them a couple of hours, they got it done. You know,
it's the only number they've confirmed.
It's big news today. You know, you go on the Sky Sports app. I was on it before, and I was scrolling, and I was scrolling, and I was scrolling, and it was all Rooney.
BBC Football home is exactly the same.
It's all Rooney, and okay, it mightn't last for too long, but keep the story going. Everton wouldn't have dreamed of doing a press conference today, like another press conference. They do all the in-house stuff, and that's it. They put it to bed. They don't have another press conference to let other journalists. How dare they? But that's what they've got to start doing. And having a player like this, you get that. The story now will be, you know, we did a video last week, and it was like, who do you want to sign him? And I just said, I'm not asked. I want to see what happens. Yeah. I'm not that asked about what happens on the pitch. I know it sounds stupid. I am. But I've got enough faith in him that I think it'll turn out okay. But I want to see what happens. Yeah. I want to see the narrative. And I think that's where now you'll go. It's a pity, actually, that the TV games were done last week and they're not getting done this week, because I think we'd be on TV a lot more. I know there was rumours that he was signing, but I think if the TV, everyone would go, how's he going to do in this game and how's he going to do in that game? You know, and I think every week now it'll be, how did Rooney do? How did Rooney do? Good or bad, but that can only be good for Everton.
The other thing as well, the Facebook, Paddy was telling me, the Facebook page, when they do the unveilings, there's like 50,000 views and all that. The Rooney one's at 2.4 million. So that's a little bit...
There are people around world footy who follow players.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Wayne Rooney is such a big player that he will bring fans and new eyes to Everton for whether, you know, you'll have to deal with what that means for your football club for the long term. Like, but you know, it is a thing. I think it's what I see and why I try my best. I could start having a go in it. I could look into his stats and I could look into this and that. But just seeing how Evertonians have reacted to him coming back, I think it tells you everything you need to know about what it means. Because here's the thing about Wayne Rooney. Again, we could say, look, he's telling off, and I've seen plenty of Man United fans saying, you know, see what we're getting. Mm-hmm. I don't think it should be underestimated what it means to play for the team that you genuinely love as well. And you know, we've seen that we've seen lesser players perform at a higher standard. I've seen that Liverpool haven't had a player of a Steven Gerrard calibre. You know, no one's come close to that. But I've seen lads play games for Liverpool who've gone on to do nothing in their careers, who've put in some worldy shifts while wearing the red shirt. The John Flanagans and Jay Spearings of this world. Wayne Rooney, it goes without saying, is different class compared to these guys. So while there might be a complacency issue when you've won everything, and you know, how do you motivate yourself to get up and run around the pitch when you're not playing right at the top level anymore? But I would back the character of him to at least put it about.
I think that's a massive point, because I think he's done it all at United. He's been there for so long. You go stale in places, you're doing the same. It's rinse, and you were saying again, the football story just runs and it's just like Groundhog Day. And yeah, he's performing every week. United, he's analysed. His stats are better than Ross Barkley's last season. You know, so we haven't got goals in our team now. I would back him in the penalty area 10 times out of 10 with the ball at his feet to score a goal, and I think it'll reignite. It's the move he needed. I think it'll reignite him. It'll give him that freshness, and I think we've got a manager who will use him correctly. And I'm delighted he's back, and it does feel good that he's back. It's a feel good, and in a time when it's easy to dislike footballers and the things that go on, I'm not bothered. This one makes me feel
I think the manager as well. I think the manager wants to work with players of the calibre of Wayne Rooney. And he wants to get them in the door at Everton. And I think it's marquee signings been getting put around. But if you want big name signings, there's nothing better than getting actually the first one in the door who's got an affinity with the club.
Yeah.
And the fans have already got an affinity with it.
He becomes an ambassador in that regard.
Exactly.
And he's done the due diligence there. He's like, look, I'm Wayne Rooney. You know who I am. This is the club. This is my favourite club, and this is who I.
And as you mentioned before, though, like it's not just it's a football thing, but it's bigger than that, because you hope that sort of he brings a little bit of brand Rooney with him as well, and all those things start, because this is why big clubs get big.
The Belgravia Centre's
going
to be sponsoring everything.
That'd be beautiful. That'd be just on a third kit. But it's important that you're having these big events with, you know, people are always questioning Everton, why haven't they got a better kit deal? Why haven't they got a better sponsorship deal? Why are they always overlooked for these big deals? The point is because the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Liverpool, the likes of Man United, these are having these press conferences 3 times a summer. Maybe not for you, but they're having these press conferences 3 times a summer with all this effect that goes around the world. Yeah. We don't. This is the first press conference I can remember for a player for a very long. I mean, we used to do them all the time. We used to have proper press conferences. Yeah, Lukaku was probably the last one, and that was probably more to say, it's real. He's actually sitting here, and we haven't loaned him. Yeah. We'd normally just do a little in-house video, and you know, the questions are all, you know.
The demand's got to be there though as well, hasn't it? And
but sometimes you create the demand.
No, you do. But what we saw before was mad stuff. There was just people and press queues everywhere from every different place, and you just go.
And I think that the best thing, just to kind of wrap us up, I mean, like I say, I spend a lot of time working with you boys. I see you pretty much every Monday. You've both bounced in here today. And when I got a message, do you mind taking some time to talk about Rooney? Yeah, no problem. And if, you know, the sense of positivity really feels like it's back around Everton and Evertonians at the moment. And if Wayne Rooney's the one who plays into that and even helps to bit of fair play to you, because it sounds like you're going to have a very exciting season one way. I think
what's got to be stressed though, very importantly, is if he'd come in and Lukaku had gone out and that's sort of been the only business, obviously we wouldn't all feel like this. But because the business has been so calculated so far this summer, and not everyone from other clubs can see it and go, you know, for us, we've strengthened in the areas we need to strengthen, and this is just like that little cherry on top. Yeah. But will help all that and will sink down into the foundation. So that's why it's really important.
Yeah. That's all I was going to say. It's key, because he's just a part of a jigsaw. He's not the piece. You know, it's not like the final piece of the jigsaw. He's just in there.
That's Giroud.
Well, that's Giroud and Sigurdsson. But who knows?
Absolutely.
And Van Dijk.
Well, brilliant, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure. Weirdly, I don't think I'd ever imagine I would have said the words, much like you saying Wayne Rooney coming back with open arms, me saying I would sit down and talk with Evertonians and have a good time talking about Wayne Rooney coming back to but there you go. Guys, hope you've enjoyed this Social Club Wayne Rooney special. If you've got more from Toffee TV, click their emblem on the screen right there. Subscribe to the channel, and there's loads more Rooney stuff. And if you want just general Social Club goodness, you can by clicking that video there as well. Anyway, guys, thanks very much. An absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yeah.
Then, but hopefully not.
Then it gets real.
Yeah, this is the best time it is.
It's the best time to be a fan.
It's all on paper.
Amazing.